Chris Glover. Tonight, the race to lead Ontario's Liberal Party is getting more interesting as a longtime GTA politician is set to explore a bid for the leadership.
And I hope that people have the trust and confidence in me.
Bonnie Crombie is the current mayor of Mississauga, but she's about to test the waters of a run to lead Ontario's Liberals.
Nonprofit, affordable housing is always part of the solution. It's really, really critical.
How federally owned buildings may be a solution to a lack of affordable housing in the National Capital Region.
This is their security protocol that had failed, but I'm left to pick up all the pieces.
And this man's tax account was hacked. Now he's on the hook for tens of thousands of dollars the scammers got from the government using his stolen identity. Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us from across the province. And we begin tonight with a story that could have wide-reaching provincial importance. Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie is taking the first step towards a potential run for the Ontario Liberal leadership. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redekop gets us started tonight.
Also with us is
sources close to Mayor Bonnie Crombie say she's forming an exploratory committee looking into a bid for Liberal leader. That process includes setting up a website. A site briefly appeared online today before it was removed. It included her photo and a bio. One political scientist says it's just a matter of when her run becomes official.
I don't think someone of the stature of Mayor Crombie makes public that she's setting up this committee to look into, gee, would she be a feasible and viable candidate, and have that committee then come up with, no, we don't think so. We don't think you've got the right stuff.
This comes less than a week after Crombie was at Queen's Park as the government announced Peel Region will be dissolved, something she pushed for. Asked then if it meant the end of her leadership ambitions.
Right now, I'm solely focused on this incredible day and this historic announcement, and that's all I'm going to say about that matter.
So far, MP Nate Erskine-Smith is the only official candidate. Others exploring a bid include MP Yasser Naqvi and MPPs Stephanie Bowman, Ted Hsu, and Adil Shamji, aiming to lead a party that came in third twice in a row, decimated without official party status after governing for 15 years.
Whoever's the leader is going to be facing a make or break election for the party, in my opinion, in the next election.
Crombie was most recently re-elected mayor of Mississauga last year, winning more than 75% of the vote, leading a city that provincially is completely Tory blue, which could factor into the decision for Liberals if she runs.
Here's someone who could, off the top, get us maybe even run the table and get all 5 or 6 Mississauga seats back in the hands of the Liberals. I think Liberals will be salivating in Ontario.
Crombie is expected to give more details tomorrow. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, so sometimes there are fireworks in leadership campaigns. Well, there will definitely be fireworks tonight across the province to mark Victoria Day. And here in Toronto, the city is putting on a huge event along the waterfront. And along with thousands of spectators, it'll also be under the watchful eye of Toronto police. Tyler Cheese is live for us tonight at Ashbridges Bay with all the details. And Tyler, police certainly hoping that they will be able to prevent a repeat of what happened last year.
Yeah, you can definitely feel the police presence out here in the park. Officers are posted pretty much in every corner. That's because last year's long weekend celebration saw 2 men shot and another stabbed. 7 police officers were also injured, and a total of 24 arrests were made over the course of 2 days. Police announced earlier this week they'd be stepping up their presence this year to ensure the event stays safe for everyone who comes out.
What happened last year, we are not going to tolerate this year. My officers will be out in full force with the City of Toronto bylaw officers, and they will be looking for any crime and disorder issues, and they will act on those issues promptly. It's our job to ensure that everybody coming to the beaches and Ashbridges Bay this weekend have a safe environment, and we plan to ensure that that happens.
Now, officers have been out here since Friday, along with fire services and paramedics. They've also increased parking enforcement around Woodbine Beach Park, and they're warning drivers to expect traffic delays, especially with some road closures, including on Lakeshore Boulevard East. They're also recommending people take public transit if possible, and the TTC has increased service in the area for the evening. Beyond patrolling here, police say they'll also be out in other popular parks across the city to keep an eye on things. And as for the fireworks show itself, that starts at 10 p.m. and can be viewed right here in Ashbridges Bay Park. Chris?
All right, Tyler, thanks so much. Tyler Cheese reporting live for us tonight from Ashbridges Bay. Colette's into the picture now. And Colette, beautiful sunshine there behind Tyler, but I think that it might be a little chilly for folks catching fireworks tonight.
Yeah, those temperatures are going to be coming down pretty quickly once we get that sun setting too. It's two things here going on, right? You need the sun to set so the fireworks really look dramatic, but then that temperature starts to drop off on us too. Let's kind of look at what's happening over the next few days here. So broad strokes with our headlines. No blanket of cloud tonight. With those clear skies, that's why we'll see some cooler temperatures. But when you add to that some very, very light winds and the temperatures really dropping for eastern Ontario, and I welcome our viewers that are joining us from the Ottawa region and beyond, it does mean the risk of some patchy frost for tonight. In terms of the temperatures for southern Ontario, we see them going up, and then we're going to see them coming down for a few days as we get into kind of midweek. And then the long-range outlook, I got to give you the good news in there too, is they start to go up once again. So just having a look at the big picture here, ridge of high pressure in place. This is why we have the clear skies, not only tonight, you know, tomorrow through the day, we have a lot of sunshine as well. For Tuesday, even into Tuesday night, and then things begin to change Wednesday. The areas where we have that frost advisory in place, so Prescott included in this, and Renfrew over towards Cornwall and Brockville and through that region. So if you do have any plants you can still protect that maybe you put out early in their pots or that kind of thing, you may want to just kind of pull them back in. And there it is, the low tonight for Ottawa going down to 2 degrees, whereas Toronto 9 and Windsor almost a 10-degree difference between the two. 11 degrees tonight, even with those clear skies. You don't need a blanket. It's still going to be double digits there. Checking out our temperatures around the region, we've got Kingston at 17, Toronto coming in at 16 now, and Windsor still holding in those low 20s at 23. And then what's going to be happening here, after we get this ridge of high pressure kind of moving away, we've got a cold front that will be approaching. Now, as that rain comes in, we'll check out the timeline. A few spotty showers Wednesday early in the morning, and then we get into Wednesday later morning. We start to see this stretching not just from eastern Ontario, but back through the GTA. I've just put a slim chance of seeing some showers into southwestern Ontario, though probably just a little extra cloud cover there. So keep in mind, milder for tomorrow ahead of that system, 20 and sunshine. Then it moves through a couple of cool days, and then the temperatures will start to increase, really building as we go towards next week, by the way. Ottawa, looking at your forecast here, 22, as cool as 12 degrees behind that front into Wednesday. And then again, you're also looking at those temperatures kind of building as we get a little bit later towards Saturday and into next week. Chris, I'll just give you a little preview. It looks like by midweek next week, we could be into the mid to even some upper 20s coming our way.
Oh, that's nice. I still can't get over that temperature spread between Ottawa all the way down to Windsor overnight. That's nuts.
I know. It's all southern Ontario, but I always tell folks, oh boy, the weather can be so drastically different.
No kidding. All right. Happy holiday, and thanks, Colette.
Thank you, Chris.
And I want to take you now to the nation's capital, where the federal government has decided to sell or transfer ownership of 10 of its buildings in Ottawa-Gatineau. It's trying to reduce its office footprint and adjust to a new hybrid work model, and it's flagged housing as one option for some of the properties. Celeste Ducaire has that story.
Without government employees working in person at the office full-time, some federal buildings are essentially collecting dust. As of last week, the government is looking to change that. And in the face of an affordable housing crisis, advocates have some ideas in mind.
So nonprofit affordable housing is always part of the solution. It's really, really critical.
4 of the buildings on the government's disposal list are downtown. Having more residential spaces in the core would potentially bring more life back to the city.
We know we need to densify. A big solution to downtown revitalization is going to be residential, right? We know we need more people in the downtown core who are not there just from 9 to 5.
Which sounds great in theory, but it wouldn't be that easy. These buildings are not designed as livable spaces, so a remodeling project like that would take a lot of work.
You have to get plumbing and electricity hookups for multiple kinds of units. Accessibility standards are really critical to that. So there's a lot of challenges in doing it.
But not impossible. The government has also cited affordable housing on its list of ideas, along with turning these properties into commercial or community spaces. Problem is, disposal of a building like this takes several years.
There's lots of different ways that the buildings can be used, but of course they're going to have to do the assessments on whether they will be suited to be transferred to residences, and that's part of the difficulty.
It's a lengthy process that is still very much in the early stages.
Collectively, all levels of government have to come together and figure out staging how all of these properties can be converted as quickly as possible.
Celeste Kerr, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now to a CBC News exclusive, and a Toronto man is going public 3 years after his account with the Canada Revenue Agency was hacked. Fraudsters have since used his identity to apply for $40,000 in federal benefits. And as Rosa Marcatelli reports, now he says he's been left on his own to clear his name.
Justice Munsey is constantly making calls, trying to shut down identity thieves applying for credit and government benefits under his name. So far, it's happened at least 18 times, ever since hackers got into the CRA's website and stole his private information. His nightmare began here.
More details tonight about the cyber attacks on federal accounts that compromised the personal information of thousands of Canadians.
In all, the accounts of about 48,000 tax-paying Canadians were accessed by hackers 3 years ago.
Let me see who else I have.
And if that's not enough, the same government department is demanding he repeatedly prove he's not behind the fraud. The latest? The CRA wants more than $6,000 in taxes and interest related to EI claims Munsey didn't make.
I think I've received maybe 4 different notices stating, hey, you got to give us money and you got to give us now. This is their security protocol that had failed, but I'm left to pick up all the pieces.
Munsey is part of a class action lawsuit that claims government operational failures allowed hackers to access the information. The government says stolen login credentials were used to access the CRA website and urged Canadians to avoid reusing passwords. A cybersecurity analyst and lawyer says the government's response to victims is another failure.
So the toothpaste is out of the tube, and to put it back is just not possible. Once your information has been compromised, it is very hard to make somebody whole, in some cases even impossible.
The CRA says security on its website has been upgraded since the hack. So Go Public asked a cybersecurity expert to take a look. She says it's still lacking some basic security features that make it vulnerable to hackers.
I'm very concerned about the privacy of Canadians.
The CRA tells Go Public it can't comment on specific taxpayer situations because of confidentiality rules. Generally, it says, confirmed victims of identity theft won't be held responsible for money paid out to scammers, and says the department is dedicated to resolving those incidents. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
We're hearing tonight from the brother of a woman who was killed in Brampton. On Friday, police in Peel located the victim in a park with signs of trauma. Her husband is now facing a murder charge. Meg Roberts spoke with the woman's brother.
On Friday evening, Devinder Kaur agreed to meet her husband at a park in Brampton. That's according to her brother, who says she had been living away from her husband, contemplating divorce. What happened in the park, her brother says, is undescribable.
And I was shocked. I stopped my car. I couldn't stop, I was crying. I tried to call everyone. I did try to call the Canadian police, everybody, but this is too late for us,
Peel Police said it received a call around 6 p.m. Friday night for medical assistance at Sparrow Park. Emergency crews found a 43-year-old woman with obvious signs of trauma.
Police officers alongside paramedics commenced life-saving efforts. However, the female was pronounced deceased on scene.
Police arrested 44-year-old Nab Nishan Singh a short distance from the scene. He has been charged with first-degree murder.
I don't know how come he can do that, So it's pretty bad for us.
Kaur and Singh were married for more than 20 years and have 4 children together. 3 of them are living in the GTA. The family is worried about them.
The kids are alone there. We don't really have anybody there. So the kids are alone by self. So they are in a bad situation too, But we have to accept that now she's no more,
The victim's brother, who lives in the U.S., is trying to get a visa to travel here for the funeral, as well as other family members who are living in India. That's in order to honor someone he says was always so supportive of everyone.
She was raising kids, working hard, so she was a very nice person.
Meg Roberts, CBC News, Toronto.
Now to Eastern Ontario, where OPP are investigating after 2 people were killed early this morning in Pembroke in what police are calling a targeted incident.
Police are asking public to report any suspicious activity in the area and to be mindful of their own personal safety.
Officers responded to an incident shortly before 3 a.m. where they found 2 people with life-threatening injuries. Both were taken to the hospital, where one was pronounced dead. A third person, found not far from the initial scene, was also pronounced dead. The Pembroke killings come only a few days after a 41-year-old man was fatally shot in Renfrew, roughly 60 kilometers southeast. A suspect in that murder is still at large. Expanded diversity is the theme of this year's Paramedic Services Week. The goal is to talk about steps the profession has taken to become more inclusive, while also highlighting the work still left to be done. Greg Ross explains.
This week, the paramedic industry is celebrating the steps it has taken to become more diverse.
I've been around in the system for quite a few years, and I've grown from the days when it was pretty much a white male profession. It's not that anymore.
The president of the Ontario Association of Paramedic Chiefs says the profession has taken great strides towards closing the gender gap.
We continue to have many females coming into it. As an association, we're working on women in leadership.
He says they're also breaking ethnic barriers as well.
We have a pretty good balance, I think, in terms of culture, ethnicity, religion.
But there is still plenty of room for improvement in those areas.
I do think we have a long way to go to make sure that our sort of workforce matches the population that we're serving.
This critical care paramedic says work also needs to be done to improve service in some of the more rural areas of the province.
Ontario is a very big place, and we have huge challenges in the north. With respect to staffing.
And those staffing issues have had a significant impact on First Nations communities in the province, which are currently underserviced.
We need to address that. The province needs to address that. And I think the federal government needs to address that as well, because some of that's within the federal jurisdiction for First Nations.
Another focus this week will be on mental health services for paramedics.
This is not an easy profession. You see many things in the profession over the years and over the days that you would really prefer not to see. You end up living through the process, and sometimes they resurface.
The Ontario Association of Paramedic Chiefs says they have a 16-member peer support team to help deal with mental health issues, and they're working with the province to help improve mental health services in the industry. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. Today marks an important event for Toronto's Jewish community. The annual Walk with Israel took place today.
Every year we bring together tens of thousands of community members, young and old, religious and secular, Jewish, and allies of all communities to gather together and to show our connection to Israel.
Thousands gathered at the Prosserman Jewish Community Center in North York for the walk. This comes just days after Toronto police released a hate crime report showing that Toronto's Jewish, LGBTQ, and Black communities were the most frequent targets of hate-motivated crimes last year. With plans to build a massive waterfront spa at Ontario Place in Toronto's by the water, a group that opposes the redevelopment gathered today to bring attention to the planned changes.
This is a place that we have been repeatedly told for the last little while is dead, is derelict, nobody comes here. So just look around you. I mean, aside from all of us gathered here for Ontario Place for All, I'm sure you've noticed all the people using Ontario Place as a park and surrounding us.
Today's event was put on by a group that's called Ontario Place for All, and their hope is to keep the tourist spot accessible to the public. Toronto mayoral candidates Olivia Chow, Josh Matlow, and Green Party leader Mike Schreiner were among those taking part. The event also marking Ontario Place's 50th anniversary, which actually took place in 2021 but could not be celebrated because of the pandemic. Another important anniversary being celebrated. 20 years ago today, Toronto's Distillery District, a once booming industrial hub, reopened as an arts and shopping district. Today we dug into how it went from a forgotten collection of bricks to a year-round attraction.
Right over here, where our parking lot is, that is actually the original shoreline of Lake Ontario. Gooderham decided to build this stone distillery, convinced his friends to move the Grand Trunk Railroad here, which is why Toronto now has the rail line going south of us instead of to the north of us. So we could still have been on the water.
20 years ago, my partners and I came to the site. We were told about it because we were in the film business. And we walked in pretending that we were film scouts. We were shown building after building. And we were absolutely blown away by what we saw here in the potential. Every building at the time was vacant. Almost every building had not been updated since they were originally constructed. Some of them went back 150 years. And we just walked in just being amazed by the sheer grandeur of the spaces, by the potential of the spaces. I remember the first building we went through, it was the old smokehouse. When the first comment was, this was the most unbelievable art gallery. We're in the next space saying, this could be a restaurant. And after that, we said, this could also be an art gallery. This could be a performance space. And we really developed the whole concept in that first tour. We had no idea when we first started out just how huge an undertaking it was. The whole district had to essentially be rebuilt.
I grew up in Cabbagetown, and we used to come down to the distillery to freak ourselves out by walking around the empty cobblestone streets. The place used to feel kind of like a sort of the set of a post-apocalyptic movie, and I think a lot of post-apocalyptic movies were shot here in the distillery, but it was really always kind of a creepy abandoned site. And I remember very, very clearly coming to work here. I mean, it had been completely transformed in the redevelopment phase, but there were none of the condo towers that we see around us at all. It was all these low buildings. It was quite kind of mysterious. The big difference now is, whereas it felt like an island, it now feels part of the fabric of the city. It really feels like it's kind of the heart of New Toronto. If you look at what's going on around us, what's about to happen to the south of us with new development, it really is totally transformed.
To Windsor now, where the city has lost a community icon. Accomplished realtor and civic booster Bob Pedler has died.
Bob's name is just synonymous with real estate. He's such a champion of the industry and made so many positive changes.
Pedler was the past president of the Canadian Real Estate Association, and he also served on the Canadian delegation on the United Nations Commission on Human Settlement in 1987 and was a recipient of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal. Pedler died of complications from surgery last Thursday. He was just 92 years old. Stay with us. We'll be right back. 4 astronauts have arrived at the International Space Station on a private spacecraft. It was launched atop a rocket at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And this mission is sponsored by a privately funded space infrastructure developer. It is the second private astronaut mission to the space station. The crew includes a former NASA astronaut, 2 Saudi Arabia astronauts, and a U.S. private citizen. Finally tonight, Europe's largest volcano, Mount Etna, is once again spewing ash and smoke all over Sicily. The 3,300-meter-high volcano firing lava over the Mediterranean island. The local airport in Catania was forced to halt flights because of the volcanic ash. And that's our show tonight. Thanks so much for watching.